Bahama, set to pledge his allegiance to Samoa.
Well, potentially, yeah. He's giving consideration to playing for Samoa at the end of the year. Now, we know he's previously played one game for Samoa at the 2022 World Cup. I think he was injured, limited to one game, but he has played for Australia the past few years, and this is quite a significant moment, depending which way he goes, because over the next few weeks, I believe Payne Haas will pledge his allegiance to Samoa. Kevy Walters got his work cut out trying to convince him to stay and play for Australia, but there's also talk that Tino's giving consideration as well. So this is a massive blow for Australia if he goes down that path, because he was sensational for Queensland. At fullback, you'd imagine he'd challenge Dylan Edwards potentially for that number one jersey. A lack of centre options means he'll probably play in the centres though. But if he plays for Samoa, what a team that is looking like. Best case scenario for Ben Gardner. It's a pretty star-studded lineup. But at the moment, I spoke to his camp today, and he's got all options open and discuss it as the season pans out.
Strong Pacific nations are what we want, I guess, along the way, but you obviously want to keep Australia strong while we're at it as well. Now, Adam Dwey kicks the winning field goal yesterday. We know there's talks externally with another club at the moment. Is there a chance he could stay at the Tigers?
Well, yeah, there's definitely a chance. The Tigers have met with Adam Dwey. They want to keep him. The original offer, I believe, was around $350,000. My understanding is they've upped that in recent days to maybe about $400,000, but the Dragons are circling. Adam Dwey actually did a medical with the Dragons in the off-season. They were looking at him last season to join the club. He was coming back off an ACL, and it never progressed. Now the Dragons are back in again, and we know that Jack de Bellin's heading to the Eels next year, and I think they were pretty impressed with what they saw with him at lock forward yesterday. Gives them an option, a ball-playing lock option, utility, can kick goals. We know he can play in the halves, play in the centre. So the Dragons are having discussions with his management about bringing him to the club next year.
Okay, while we're on the Tigers, Dream Buller spotted watching a Bulldogs game. This is scuttle at its absolute best right here.
Well, I said a few weeks ago that it was my understanding that his management was gauging interest ahead of November 1. But if you can't read into this photo, like if you're going to read into that, like you'd be more worried about what's happening behind closed doors than in front of thousands of people. Like Isaac Dungle was at the Tigers game at Leichhardt on Sunday, so all of a sudden, if you think he's going to the Tigers, you'd be kidding yourself. So I understand why people would talk about it, but as I said, I'd be more worried about what's happening behind closed doors and with that option there with the Tigers and what happens next year.
All right, keep parrying.
Unless Gus invited him, I don't know about it, so that would be interesting.
Well, what's the issue there, though? What is the actual issue? Just because he's there?
Well, over the weekend, a lot of people started, the photo surfaced and started to think, is he going to the Bulldogs? Is he going to be is he going there? But he's obviously supporting Lockie Galvin.
How long is he on contract at the Tigers?
Well, that's the part we don't know, because there's an option in his contract for 27 and 28, and it depends on how much money. If the Tigers take it up, it's at $900,000. If he takes it up, it's $800,000. It's murky. But as I said, if you're going to go to a club, or if you want to test the waters, you don't go to a game and sit there in the open and make your statement. I know what it looks like, but as I said, friends are watching, friends all over the NRL at the moment. It's not an issue.
Yeah. Genuine scuttle, that one. Now, CherryEvans, great seeing him smiling in Melbourne on the weekend with that win over the Storm. Is the deal with the Roosters still on the cards?
Yeah, look, my understanding it's a one-year deal. He'll announce that later in the year with a 1 year, well, continuing on as a coach. Now, Danny last week spoke about how, as part of CherryEvans' role at the club, that he'll move into a coaching role once he retires. Now, this is unrelated, but it looks as though Cooper Cronk's time at the club is coming to an end. My understanding, he's been working as a halves consultant there for a number of years since retiring, and he wants to move in a different direction. He's got different interests in life around the corporate world, and at the moment he's sort of struggling to make commitment and time with the Roosters. So the club's aware of his feelings at the moment, and it looks as though Cooper Cronk's time at the club will be coming to an end as Daly arrives.
Okay, so there's a playing then a coaching role that we're expecting.
That's the understanding.
Unfold for him. Eels got the Raiders this week. Big Josh Papalii, he's had a year to remember, and he's hoping to cap it with a premiership. Is he going to be hanging around in the nation's capital? Yeah,
look, obviously we expected Josh to finish up, and he was going to head over to England on a 2-year deal. Now, Josh has had conversations with the Canberra Raiders, opened the possibility about staying and whether that's possible. And the club's they want to be really respectful to Josh, because obviously he's a fantastic stalwart for the game. He's been a great representative for that club. And they want to be respectful. If the possibility of him staying is there, well, then they'll try and make it a reality. But the issue is that if he does stay, they've planned for life without him. And if he does stay, it means probably someone else has to go. So those conversations are ongoing at the moment. And both parties are making sure Josh Papalii doesn't want to hurt the Canberra Raiders' future prospects as well. So they'll continue towards the back end of the year, but it's been floated at the moment as a possibility.
A juicy one, looking at the wider game at the moment, the NRL, they're forming a committee to have a look and a review into the salary cap. I'd love to get Gus's thoughts on this.
Well, he was supposed to be on it, but he brushed it.
Right.
He was on the committee. He was invited.
Okay.
Sure.
So tell us about the committee and then we can find out a bit more about that.
Well, the committee was formed to go over the salary cap and the way they... giving them opportunity to revisit and look at the way they look at the salary cap and how they implement some of those things in there. And it's my understanding at the moment, one of the recommendations that could be put forward is around development of young players and incentivising it for the clubs who develop those players to make sure they're not losing their best players because they're going somewhere else. So at the moment, there's a $300,000 veteran and development player allowance. It's capped at $300,000, and it's my understanding that's 10%. I think they get as a dispensation if you are a player who's been developed by that club. So Nathan Clear, for example, if it's on 1.2, well then 120,000 will go towards dispensation, but it's capped at 300. So one of the recommendations will be to significantly increase that and make sure there's a greater chunk being put forward to those clubs to try and keep their young players there.
At what age do they have to be at that club to be classed as a development player? Like, for example, I'm thinking of myself, I was a Parramatta till I was 17 or 18 years of age. I debuted at Cronulla. So does that mean I would be classed as a Cronulla junior or a Parramatta junior?
Yeah, it's a good question. Well, I don't know where it stands right now, whether they have to get their Harold Matts, SG Ball, lots changed over the years, but there's definitely an emphasis, and it's happened before. Clubs have pushed for this, but the clubs who buy players have fought against it. They don't want to be disadvantaged, and I think the ones who develop and try and feel as though they're losing players to other clubs.
Penrith Panthers, that's exactly
they're keeping them because they have success, right? But someone like
they've also lost to guys like Stephen Croy. They've lost a heap of them. They've developed since they've been probably 10, 11, 12 years of age, up until first grade, turn them into superstars, and they can't afford to keep them.
Yeah.
So that's what it's about, being able to keep those players they've developed.
Yeah, and make sure you reward those players who develop. Do you believe this is the right model, Gus? Do you sort of need to incentivise this more for those clubs who do that?
Yeah, it's a small part of the overall thing. The reason why I pulled out of that committee was because the scope of the investigation was not extensive enough. And I said there was nothing I can contribute unless they wanted to go back and blow it up and start again, which they're not prepared to do, obviously. So all these other things are just cosmetic changes and aren't going to make a great deal of difference to salary cap management.
Is the overall process that broken, though, the overall system at the moment?
The whole thing needs to be looked at, from the power of player managers to the movement of players to the contracting of rookie players, the role that managers play in that. There's a whole range of things that had to be done right from the beginning. The scope of this investigation wasn't extensive enough, so it's nothing I can contribute to.
Alrighty, finally, Mitch Moses.
Yeah, back this week for Parramatta. A couple of big ins for a couple of different clubs. Mitchell Moses for Para, and I'm hearing that Hugo Savala might be a chance of returning for the Roosters. Chad Townsend obviously played last week. I think the Roosters will make a change. It'll be Sandon Smith coming back into the team. He was pulled from New South Wales Cup, or it'll be Savala if he can prove his fitness. So he missed last week's game.
Good for the Roosters.
With a wrist injury.
Great for Para.
Massive for Para. I know, look, the season's gone, but in terms of combinations and getting a chance to see him with Joe Ash and what they can do, Jason Ryall's been quite bullish about the decision not to pick Dylan Brown, and Mitchell comes back and they get a bit of a glimpse into the future this weekend.
Scuttlebutt Central. Thank you, Michael.
Grace.